right. Happy holidays, Littleton. Welcome back to our next episode of Watson Drops GM Update. I'm Kirby Dolak with LCTV, and we're back again with LELWD's General Manager Nick Lawler to discuss updates on the sewer project prior to winter, discuss the schedule, budget, and then share any information on the community impacts of the project. Good day, Nick, and welcome back to Watson Drops.
Thanks, Kirby. Yeah, community impacts. I don't think there's been any.
All right, Nick. Let's jump back into the sewer projects piece from our last GM update discussion. First, just give us a quick update or explanation, I should say, of the components of the project, because there's a few, and then a high-level status of those components and how those project components were going to be affected by the upcoming winter conditions, because construction on this scale does have issues, I should say, related to frozen ground, frozen equipment, materials, employee safety, and staying on schedule. So how these contractors going to work around that kind of winter thing?
Sure. So yeah, maybe I'll start with the components of the project, because I think it's been a little while since we've really spoken in detail about that. But there's really probably 5 different pieces of the project, and some are complete. For instance, one was land acquisition for the treatment facility, which has been completed. It's 242 King Street. Engineering design's complete, but now there's still a piece of engineering related to construction oversight. It's something that I don't think the residents quite are aware of, but we have engaged with the engineering firm CDM Smith to oversee construction 100% of both the build out of the wastewater treatment facility and also the infrastructure build in the roads for the collection system and the water main replacement. So that's an important piece to remind the residents of. And then there's the discharge site up at the high school, which is complete. There's some issues with the sod that we're working closely with the DPW on, and also the contractor. Wasn't installed exactly per specification, but other than that loose end, that project is complete, the below ground part of the project. And then there's really the 2 major pieces of the project, which are ongoing now, which are highly visible. So I know people at least know about the projects, from a high level, but it's the installation of the sewer infrastructure down Russell Street, King Street, Shattuck Street, Great Road, and so on. And then also the construction of the wastewater treatment facility at 242 King Street. So yeah, that's kind of the pieces of it. The schedule for those projects, for the 2 ongoing ones. So Rivoli is the contractor that received the bid. They were a low bid on the collection system, so the road work. They should be finishing this week because winter conditions are tough for them. Their state permit that they work on doesn't allow really for work through the winter, because obviously the road conditions and plowing and salt preparation for snowstorms takes precedent over working in roads throughout the winter. Plus, they're not that productive in the winter time conditions for various reasons. One also being asphalt. Asphalt's not readily available as it is during non-winter months. So they're working on Goldsmith Street, hopefully today and tomorrow, because it does stub off onto Goldsmith Street about 100 feet. So they're hoping to get that piece done today and tomorrow. And then Rivoli, you'll see them around town throughout the winter doing some testing. There's a lot of testing requirements to make sure there's no leaks in the system and stuff like that, to make sure things are installed properly. So they'll start that testing in winter months, see what they can get completed. And then the heavy construction will start again next spring after April 1st, which will be the majority of that work will be on Great Road and King Street up by the Westford side of King Street through the Common. And then if you go to the plant, the plant will work through the winter. That type of construction is fine in the winter. It'll be mostly site work and moving stuff around and above ground, probably, activities. Right now, they've just been basically digging a 30-foot hole, for the bioreactor, and forming that up and pouring cement, when they can. Obviously, there's temperature controls that take place with pouring of cement as well. It needs to have the right temperature to cure. But they'll keep on working as they can through the winter.
Yeah, the admix and the heating blankets that need to be applied, I imagine will be rather extensive. I remembered seeing as I went by look like a specific heating plant that does blow hot air. And definitely concrete curing is a science from a mix perspective, but also for emplacement and also for ensuring a proper cure. And the slump tests and all this kind of good stuff that have to go on, and we don't think about it during the warmer winter months. But when you start getting into cold, the folks that are dealing with concrete, particularly specialty pours like you guys are doing, they got to be on they're going to need to be on the top of the mark on that one.
Yeah, and that's Kirby. That's where it's important to have CDM Smith on site to make sure they're adhering to the specifications of the project. So you're 100% correct.
Yeah, I was glad to see that the building is being used there for the temporary office site. Again, what's the status of that building too, Nick, besides being used as a temporary office space?
You're talking about the old farmhouse?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, there's still been really no plans with the house. You're right. CDM Smith, Rivoli, and Bethune are all utilizing that as their office space right now. And there was a change order credit that came back to the town for that use. And it's also good to have people from an insurance standpoint, and also to make sure the house is, it doesn't freeze. It's good to have people in there. As far as long-term plans, what I suspect to happen is that we'll eventually carve out the house from the property and sell it. We're not interested in being a landlord of a house. And you got to remember, the sewer department isn't flush on cash, right? We bring a budget to town meeting, and we get the expenses, the revenues from the town to cover that budget. And that's going to be the case for quite some time before we look as financially healthy as the water and electric department are. It's going to take some time to build up those reserves. So I think our board's committed to lowering the impact of the community, and part of that would be to sell off that house at some point. It's been my pushback on a little bit to at least get the plant done, so that way whoever buys the house understands there's a sewer plant in the backyard. Because we don't want to fall into that trap.
So just circle back here. Do you want to share anything more about the sod issues? Because the recent public event with the Army helicopters landing in there, and it was still closed off, which is good. Can you tell us what the issues were there, Nick, by chance?
Yeah, installation issues. I'm not sure if the subcontractor that did that is used to installing such a large laying surface, so the seams don't line up great. So it's just a matter of working with DPW to make sure we return that field to good conditions.
Excellent. So you also mentioned that the state has a permit for Rivoli on working and not working into the winter. Obviously, you're going to be working with DPW with their hot box, which is a much smaller version of the large asphalt that's put in there, because we know that there will be issues where potholes occur. You do have seams. It's not a complete seams job in some cases. So I'm assuming, again, that's going to be happening as a watchdog with DPW on when things happen. You guys will be taking care of that.
Yeah, actually, Rivoli is responsible for that. So if potholes do appear throughout the winter, I'm sure Steve Yarnley, DPW director, will be informing me that there are issues. And Steve's great. I'm sure he'll repair some that are easy, but that's not his responsibility. And if the residents see them throughout the winter, they can let us know. We'll pass that along to Rivoli. I will say, Rivoli, when we give them issues, they have been correcting them. So I think if we just share information with Rivoli, I'm hopeful that they will address them, and they're preparing for that for that issue. They anticipate potholes from plows this winter.
Right, right. So again, anything happening on the streets is going to be dwindling down. We'll see Rivoli around doing some testing on pressurization, probably of some of those infrastructure lines to make certain we don't have any leaks, any issues associated. But as far as the waste treatment plant, it's full speed ahead. You've got a crack team that's over there, drive by there, and they're always very busy getting things done. A lot of soil that was moved. There's quite a few yards there that's been piled. So again, good work going on in both situations. Now, once we've got this parts and pieces understood a little bit better, how about schedules? We've alluded a little bit to Rivoli is going to be taking the winter off, so to speak, as far as its major builds or construction. But what's happening at the waste treatment plant? What things that we need to know?
Yeah, I mean, the schedules seem to be accurate at this time. Rivoli might be a little ahead of schedule. They've got a lot of work done. They've got a lot of the deep excavations done, it slowed them down in the common, and they had big equipment there, which obviously is very disruptive to the public because they had to work at night per the state permit. Their work should be getting less deep as they move out from the common, which should make installation quicker. But they do have a lot of water main to replace in that area as well. They replaced the water main on Russell Street, a little bit on King Street, but that's it right now. Most of it's been just sewer infrastructure. When they get onto Great Road, and anybody that's been in town for a long period of time knows that the water main in front of Great Road is AC because there's been about 6 to 8 breaks, I think, in my career just in front of Donlands. So we're replacing all that aging, failing water main as part of this project. So that will slow them down a little bit because they'll be installing water and sewer, but it shouldn't be as deep. So hopefully they can make up for it there. So I think Rivoli's on schedule. I would anticipate this. By this time next year, they're done. Probably before winter. I would think early fall is when they'll be wrapping things up. But things pop up. We'll see. We'll see when they start. I think if it's a mild winter and they start right away in April, we're looking in good shape. And we'll continue to update the public on that as we progress through the winter. And then with the treatment facility. They're on schedule as well. Their bigger issue will be lead time components. It'll be similar to what we saw with the water treatment plant, and something that's hard to predict because you've seen the supply chain issues pop up all over the place from time to time on certain pieces of equipment. Right now, everything looks fine. The filter membrane equipment was something we were worried about. And then that was supposed to be the longest lead item, but we've been told that that's actually ahead of schedule. Now we're worrying about the generator. That plant will require a generator, and generators right now have a supply chain issue. But we won't know until we progress really towards the internals of the building before supply chain issues start cropping up. And I think if you remember in the water treatment plant, it was the simplest things as logic cards, computer logic cards that were holding us up. So. Nothing yet is scaring us. It's just I hate to commit to being on schedule because there's so many unknowns with supply chain right now.
Right. Yeah, the offer to go get the PC cards for the water treatment plant that's off the table now. I'm not taking my truck to get you a generator.
Yep. Okay.
All right. So besides the Watson Drops episodes, Nick, what are you guys doing as far as informing residents and butters of? You're saying you're doing water main work. How do you communicate that so that, folks will say, okay, it's going to happen. We're going to have some water issues. We may have a break. We may hit the run. What's the communication process these days?
It's probably never enough is what I'm finding out. You can always do a better job communicating. I think we've been better since we've started. Originally, I think we were just doing direct door hangers and mailers to affected residents. Our website was updates were there, but they're a little bit more generic. we're updating key town hall staff. That's been ramped up. I mean, I think I have maybe 100 or so town hall employees on a distribution list. I have residents that have expressed direct contact on a different distribution list. Those residents get the same updates that town hall staff gets. Our website's updated with a little bit more detail, the construction schedule. So we get a 2-week look ahead from Rivoli and a 3-week look ahead from Methuen, the plant contractor. Those are on our website. I always preface it by saying the schedule is instantly wrong the second we put it on the website. So as long as people understand that, and we don't control that, that's up to the general contractor on maintaining his schedule. But in those updates, those email updates that we send out, and in the verbiage on our webpage, we try to update any changes and deviations from that schedule. Our Facebook page is constantly updated. So we're trying. We hold public forums. I think we held one. LCTV helped us out. I forget when that was. Maybe October. Kirby, right? And we're going to be doing another one in January. So we'll continue to do those probably quarterly as public forums. Let the residents come in and beat us up a little bit for what we're doing wrong.
Opportunities for learning, I call them, Nick.
Yep, I agree.
So this is actually probably the largest scale project to be attempted in Littleton. Am I correct?
It's definitely the most impactful, it seems like. And it seems like every road the sewer goes down have been very important roads. Like Russell Street, I think every resident in Littleton probably travels down Russell Street at some part of their day, whether it's the schools or a Friday night football game or cutting over to Market Basket. It's a heavily traveled road. So it's highly visible and highly impactful to pretty much every Littleton resident.
Right. So I would have to say that there's a lot of lessons that have been learned with this whole project. And it sounds like, as you've described, Nick, there are a lot of things you guys have tried to modify to get the most information out. But as you said, there's always that one little piece that you didn't share that someone then makes a comment about, why didn't you? And you're like, yeah, you're right. But I got to compliment you guys for how you've handled those interactions. But yes, we always can do better. We're public servants.
Yeah, we want people to be informed. So we take that criticism to heart, and we want to better our communication. So if people aren't getting reached and they can think of a way we can reach them, let us know. We'll be more than happy to contemplate, different ways of communicating.
Great. So let's transition, I should say. I got transmission in the brain here. Let's transition from status and schedules to project costs and any impacts that we've had with latent conditions that you guys have come across as it relates to the project budgets. And as we both know, no large-scale project budgets survive the first contact with construction and shovels going into the ground. So share with us where we are with regarding to the project budgeting and funding.
Yeah, so I mean the funding is tight, right? We had to go back to town meeting this past spring to amend the borrowing authorization. So we don't really have the liberty to change our contract that much. But you're correct. This thing whenever you're removing things in the ground and digging up the ground, you tend to find things that weren't anticipated. But as of right now, costs are under control. So we're about 20% through the build out of the treatment plant, and we have 0 change orders. So and that's good because we did the biggest dig there, right? Digging a 30-foot hole it exposes you to some opportunities of change orders. I anticipate there'll be some as we continue to build it out. I think historically our change orders are under 2.5% for a project. We typically do a pretty good job at managing that with our qualified staff that we have. We're heavily qualified on the water side, with likes of like Corey Godfrey and his team to make sure that we're limiting change orders. On the On the Rivoli contract, we're under 1%. I think we're maybe 0.5% right now in change orders. And people see these and they're quick to blame Rivoli on these, but whenever there's a water main break or an issue, it's not always their fault. Sometimes it's complicated. Things weren't exactly where plans showed them to be that are 100 years old, and or you can't find AC water main because there's no metal in it, so you can't find out exactly where it is. And sometimes it is their fault. But those conditions can lead to change orders. So we have come, I think, roughly around maybe $100,000 in change orders right now with Rivoli. Not just for that, but for some modifications of the infrastructure as you start digging up the road, putting things in a better spot, and trying to get our infrastructure in a spot that will best serve the public moving forward for a long time, not just for today.
All right. Having CDM Smith on site there for the waste treatment plant is going to serve you well, I guess, in that regards, since that's probably the more expensive / complicated piece of this whole puzzle. So kudos to you guys on that one. So we've talked about components. We've talked about statuses and schedules. So there's this thing called community impacts that you would like to talk about, Nick. What do you have in mind on that one?
Well, I mean, I think we've touched on it a little bit, just on disruption, whether it's the road that's being worked on or whether it's the time of day. And the community's been incredible on this project. Digging on Russell Street or on King Street at night around homes with large excavators is maddening for people. People went multiple weeks without sleep. And just truly appreciate their patience on this project. They voiced their concerns, which is obviously warranted, and we love to hear them. There wasn't a lot we could do. The state permit, especially on King Street, was they had to work at night because of where they were digging on the roads. They couldn't close roads down, for this type of project. So that's one piece of it. And I think the piece that we don't think about that might be a longer term community issue to solve is the form-based code that this town adopted, and making sure that this infrastructure supports not just the largest developer coming to the common and Lapoli companies, but all the small businesses that have waited 2 decades to connect the sewer to better their properties and to deliver to the town the vision that they have. And our board is highly supportive of those individuals. And as we continue to look at opportunities and ways to expand our discharge site, that's where we'll be focused on helping that part of the community as well.
Yeah, I do recall that in the last public forum you had, there were a lot of conversations and discussions about missed opportunities for communication, which you guys took some knocks, but you also basically said, if there's a better way to do things, let us know. And yes, there are ways and things that things could be done differently. But you've shown through what you've done that you're willing to do that. So it's an open communication piece that I think a lot of people, when they don't see open communication and it's two-way, that they really get frustrated. So other than, as you pointed out, and I don't want to belittle the loss of sleep because I don't seem to get enough of that lately, but having that kind of regular impact does really screw up your body's schedule, let alone worrying about dodging a large vehicle or worrying about the lights appearing in your window. So again, kudos to the Russell Street folks who put up with it, or other folks that were up by Town Hall with all those. It seemed like every day they were paving after a night's worth of digging. So a lot of work that was done there to get the community involved. Any hindsight in this whole thing you think about you might do differently, or the commissioners would like to have done differently, possibly?
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of hindsight. Probably more forums early on. we held them and people didn't really show up. And then I think we kind of didn't hold them after that. But one just for construction and impacts of construction but yeah, you could always improve communications. And I think if we communicated a little bit more directly and openly in the beginning, I'm not sure it would have made people feel better in the end because the construction was what it was, and it was impactful. It wasn't just losing sleep. It was, mailboxes being destroyed or, lawn being ripped up. It was cars being blocked in. It was disruptive, which is aggravating. So I think we still would have the same issues. It might have come out a little bit differently.
Right. Well, at least you're acknowledging them as important, and you're keeping that in the forethought in your operations in regards to the construction. Is there anything else that you would like to share on this episode of Watson Drops, Nick?
I'll go to water real quickly. We're about to put our PFAS vessels online, so
awesome.
Map is about to be PFAS free. So
town will be celebrating. I'm hoping that the select board commends you for the work that's been done up there.
Yeah, I'm sure they will.
Excellent. Well, all right. If there's nothing else, we want to thank today's guest, who doesn't really seem to be a guest that much, General Manager of Light and Water, Nick Lawler, for talking with us about the sewer and the water infrastructure work that's been done in Littleton. The update on the wastewater treatment facility, and where we are with some schedules. Things will get quiet when we get into the winter, except for the build on the wastewater treatment plant. And other than saying Merry Christmas, Nick, take care.
Same to you, Kirby.
Thank you.